All right, let's talk about parallel and perpendicular lines. And this is going to be an intro, and then we'll do a couple of examples after this. So let me just start off right off the bat. Sometimes there are two lines that are drawn in such a way or exist in such a way that they never intersect. All right. Sometimes there are lines that are drawn that intersect in a special way. That's like they create a 90-degree angle, right? Those are special cases. And then sometimes there are just lines that just flat out cross each other, touch each other, not necessarily in a 90-degree angle. They just touch each other. When they never touch each other, that means they have the same rate of change, that they go up and over at the same exact rate. We call those lines parallel. When lines intersect in such a way that it forms a 90-degree angle, we call those lines perpendicular. Perpendicular. And then when they just cross like that, we just say that these lines intersect. So not all lines that intersect are perpendicular. And not all lines that are perpendicular, well, actually all lines that are perpendicular do intersect. All right. So let's make sure that we're clear on that. What's going to matter with all of these things will be the slope. So if two lines are parallel, then they have the same slope because they rise and run the same rate. When lines are perpendicular, there are two things that are true about the slope. So the most important thing is the slope. It's the same slope when they're parallel. When it's perpendicular, two things. One, the slopes are reciprocals. They flip reciprocals. And the slopes are also opposite signs. And I'll go into detail about that in a second. And then when lines intersect, the slopes are just different. All right. So if I told you, for example, that, the slope of the first line was 2, and the slope of the second line, because there are two lines, right, is 2, then I would say these two lines are parallel. If I told you that the slope of the first line was 1/2, and the slope of the second line was the flip of that, 2/1, and the negative of that, this one is positive, this one is negative, then I would say that these two are perpendicular. And then I could go so far as to say that if I give you any two lines, and the slope of the first line was 2, and the slope of the second line was 3, these lines intersect, but that's all. So basically, when you look at trying to figure out if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or they just intersect, you just need to look at their slopes. You might have to calculate the slope. You might see a graph where you can figure out the slope, but that's all you really have to do, compare those slopes. So that's the real difference between parallel and perpendicular lines. Now I'll be able to ask you some questions about that. Like, hey, how about if I give you the slope of a line, could you give me the equation of a line that is parallel to that or perpendicular to that and go through a certain point? Those are a lot of words, but I'm just giving you a heads up as to what it is we're about to do. All right, bye.